Hi, and welcome to Talking Cars. I'm Jennifer Stockberger.
I'm Gabe Schenhauer.
And I'm Keith Barry.
So this week, we are talking about the 2023 Kia Sportage Hybrid. Now, just to fill you in on some history a little bit, we've already tested and covered the Kia Sportage non-hybrid. If you're looking for it, it is episode number 358 of Talking Cars. But just to kind of refresh everybody's memory, the big headline for the Sportage was long on style and room, short on verve was the word we used. We liked, as always we say with Kias, we like the value, the features, the easy access, roominess, capable handling, and a full complement of safety features. However, we said the powertrain struck us as being a bit lackluster. And it was, again, a 187 horsepower, 2.5 liter 4 with an 8-speed auto. But the delivery of the power was neither smooth or consistent. So enter the 2023 Kia Sportage, or Sportage, as Keith likes to call it, hybrid. And Keith, I'm going to go to you first. Does the Sportage Hybrid address some of the lackluster of the non-hybrid?
The Sportage, it puts the sport in the hybrid, puts that sport in there. It really does. It adds a lot of that smoothness that you're looking for. The power right off the line, that electric motor really gets the job done. There are a few things about the car that are different as the result of hybridization, and we found this kind of across the whole world of hybrids. It used to be that a hybrid was kind of it was a little dinky, you would get fuel economy, but other aspects of the car would suffer. But now we have over and over and over again, the hybrid version of the car is the version to get. You have, you don't have the shudder of a handoff between the gas and the electric engine when it switches. You don't necessarily have the kind of weird brake feel that hybrids used to have when the regenerative brakes kick in. Car manufacturers, it's been almost 20 years since hybrids have been really mainstream, and they've worked out all those issues, and that is never more true than in the Sportage Hybrid. If I were to buy a Sportage, by the way, it's a really good looking car. I saw one in that matte gray finish. That is a really, really attractive car. And you add in this great powertrain, you add in the great fuel economy. If I were to buy a Sportage, I would buy the Sportage Hybrid. Absolutely.
Yeah, so I agree. First of all, I love matte paint. I understand it's hard to keep it looking nice, but I love the look of matte paint. But I agree with you. I know I've said a mazillion times, and you guys make fun of me, that I love the Kia Sorento. This little bit of extra room, I would be torn whether I would get a Sportage Hybrid or a Sorento now. I gotta be honest. Maybe I don't need all that room as my kids get bigger. And I agree with you. Significant benefit in fuel economy over the non-hybrid. And this is a really nice car. And as you see those advantages, particularly at today's fuel costs, we've seen with many hybrids that the payoff time comes down. Anita's been tracking some of the hybrid, you do still pay a premium, but paybacks are down. I think on the Sportage, it's about 3 years when we're looking at, $4 plus a gallon. So definitely, even though you're paying more, you're certainly, I think, with this car, getting more. And keeping all those things, they didn't lose anything from the non-hybrid. All the value, the safety, the access stays with the hybrid. So, Gabe, I didn't know if you had anything else to add.
Of course, it's a slam dunk choice to get the hybrid, of course. So we've established that, and we've seen that same kind of pattern in the small SUV segment. That's true for the Tucson hybrid. It's true for the RAV4 hybrid, as well as the Ford Escape hybrid. You get a quieter car, you get a quicker car, you get, in some ways, because of the added weight of the hybrid battery, and different tire choices, often you get a more comfortable ride as well, which is definitely the case in the Sportage case.
And Gabe, I just want to kind of reinforce, maybe not clarify. We had said, for this car, it's a slam dunk, get the hybrid, no question. But you're kind of saying small SUVs in general, as a group, have benefited from hybridization, smaller 4 cylinders, etc.
Yeah, because these hybrids are designed for better fuel economy. We don't see any compromises in drivability or in brake pedal feel here. It's not, I mean, it's hard to make a blanket statement that hybrid is always the better choice, because some hybrids are designed to, should be viewed as basically a green turbo, just designed to give you more performance, but with less of the usual trade-off in terms of fuel economy.
Okay, so we've kind of captured the powertrain, obviously better. And we've said, compared to the non-hybrid, it still keeps value and access and roominess, but there's some other changes to the hybrid versus the non-hybrid. Keith, anything inside, outside, additional items?
Yes, there is a different gear selector, and this one is a rotary gear selector. I've gotten used to rotary gear selectors. This particular one, there's some kind of feedback to it that's slightly different that makes me have to look down at it. And I'm sure if I owned the car for, weeks or months, I would get used to it. But Gabe, what is it about this that we were talking about this before? What is it about this gear selector that's different than the one in the Maverick, in any other, in Land Rovers, any other car with a rotary?
Yeah, so other cars that have a rotary gear selector, the endpoint, when you twist the knob all the way to the left, you get park. Here in Hyundai Kia Genesis vehicles, when you twist it all the way to the endpoint to the left, you get reverse. So there are some situations where you might, if you come expecting that endpoint to be park, you might twist it all the way to the left, be in reverse, let go of the brake pedal, and lo and behold, you're rolling backwards, because the park button is inside the rotary knob as a separate button. So you have to be mindful of that.
I agree with you.
So
too,
it's
Keith.
basically a monostable, but in the form of a knob.
I agree with you, Keith. I want to be able to feel the detents enough so that I don't have to look at it. Once you learn even the reverse, I want to be able to feel where it's at. Click, click, click. Whatever way that is.
And this one almost gives you too much feel. It's weird. Yeah. It's like you have to, I mean, I found myself not having the problem with the park. I found myself having the problem where I would put it in neutral when I thought I was putting it in reverse, because you have to, it's like it's a fake detent. It's a little kind of a nudge that it gives you. And I like the fact with, I was just in the Maverick Hybrid before this, I could just spin it all the way to the left, and I didn't have to think about how many times I clicked it, and then to go and drive, spin it all the way to the right. But this, it's sort of the worst of both. I mean, I'm sure I would get used to it, but I have
a shortcut for all of that. When I get to where I want to be and I park the car, I just press shut off the engine and I'm done. It goes automatically to park.
That's a nice thing about these. That's the benefit of these transmissions. The one thing I don't think I'm ever going to get used to. Yes. The one thing I don't think I'm ever going to get used to, and unfortunately this appears to be something that Kia is doing across their lineup, which stinks because a lot of their cars are really great, is the fact that they've made the two buttons, at least I use the most. I'm a little finicky. I don't know if you can tell from my background, but I'm a little finicky. That if it's 68 degrees, I need to put it to 67 degrees, and the volume is at 12. Well, it needs to be at 15. That I'm always adjusting the volume. I'm always adjusting the temperature. And in the all new Kia vehicles, there is a button you have to press in order to switch functionality on one single knob that goes between volume and temperature. And that just really throws me off. Having to find that button, press the button, and figure out where you are. I mean, granted, there are steering wheel controls for volume, but if the passenger wants to change the volume, that's it's a concern too. So that drives me a little nuts. I know it looks nice, it frees up space and real estate, but I wish that they had just put a second knob. That's it. Just another knob.
Yeah, it might be a nice party trick to impress your neighbor, but in reality, it's really not a wise thing. I mean, I personally just keep that panel on the climate all the time, and I adjust the volume with the steering wheel control. But I can see some situations where, the high stress situation, something happens in traffic, you want to quickly get rid of the radio, looking for that button, and but that button now does temperature instead of volume. So,
yeah, Kia, give us a separate knob. Give us a separate knob.
He's pleading.
Yes.
It takes a one step and makes it a two step, honestly. So, and it does share, Gabe, the same screen as the non-hybrid. That's the same.
Yeah, the infotainment system is the same, and it works well. You can actually, a lot of customers may not ever know it, but you can actually move icons like you can do on your smartphone and put like the radio icon closer to you, or anything that you use more frequently closer to you for less reach.
Yeah, I really like the big buttons for my old eyes. I can see them easily. And I like the Edison bulb on the radio, but I've said that before. Silly things I like. So Gabe used the word slam dunk for the Kia Sportage Hybrid. So a couple little tweaks there on the interior, but certainly the value, roominess, etc. Both versions, but a little bit better, or a lot better powertrain and fuel economy on the hybrid. So full ratings for both the non-hybrid and hybrid Kia Sportage are up on our site at consumerreports.org. So moving on to our question this week, keep them coming: video, text, email, talkingcars@icloud.com. So today's question comes from John in Toronto, and he says, I have a simple but perhaps not easy to answer question. Is all-wheel drive a safety feature? My understanding is all-wheel drive may be nice to have, but good tires and traction control are much more important to safety than all-wheel drive, and may even provide a false sense of confidence in slippery conditions. When I'm in my front-wheel drive Prius with dedicated snow tires in the Toronto winters, I'm usually driving confidently past the all-wheel drive pickups and SUVs in the ditch or skidding around the road. I tend to think all-wheel drive is overhyped, and my friends are way overvaluing the feature. So help me out. Is it a must-have critical safety feature, a nice-to-have perk, or just plain overhyped? So I was going to start here with, there's a lot to unpack in your question, John, but I want to say first, you are correct. There's kind of jumps in traction and jumps in safety. The biggest one is your grip to the road. So in your case, you are absolutely right. Tires are the biggest bang for your buck. The best thing you can do to gain traction, not only in non-winter conditions, but in winter conditions. And you guys in Canada have the provincial laws that say, hey, come winter, you must have a winter tire on your vehicle. So you are much more attuned to making that change, perhaps, than many of us in the United States. So I do think that's the biggest thing. So to answer your first, I've kind of bolded here, good tires and traction control are, I agree, more important than all-wheel drive. But you take my conditions, and I've described it before. My driveway goes out and up. I cannot get out without it. So yes, I need good tires to do that. No all-wheel drive on bald tires is going to help me, but I need all-wheel drive to get out. So I think it is a necessary safety feature for some, myself included. So Gabe, thoughts on all-wheel drive and John's question?
Yeah, I would also add that all-wheel drive is a convenience feature, because when you have dedicated winter tires, you have to store another set of wheels and tires, and you have to know that come December 1st, you're switching to winter tires. Comes April 1st, you're switching back to normal tires. So it's an added task. So all-wheel drive is definitely a convenience. And just to add to put a finer point on, there are some specific locations where it's a curvy, mountainous kind of environment where the winter tires are not going to be enough. I mean, I can tell you from my own experience, I used to have a front-wheel drive car with winter tires. It went, it was great. And especially in terms of braking and cornering, it had the advantage over an all-wheel drive equivalent with just all-season tires. But there were some situations where climbing a hill, you really would benefit from all-wheel drive.
Yeah. And I think, we'd be remiss in saying, to answer John's question, if you don't really need it. So we've established tires are the big jump. All-wheel drive gives you another traction gain, particularly it sounds like climbing. We've done those tests. Absolutely gives you that little edge when climbing. But the other thing is, if you don't really need it, to John's question, is you're not incurring those mechanical losses over the other 9 months of the year or your 8 months of the year, as Gabe described. All-wheel drive is another mechanical, combination that detracts from fuel economy and has its own frictional and losses that you don't have to live with if you don't really need it. So again, and Keith, we're seeing more of this. Is all-wheel drive something we're going to see more of in the future?
I think, absolutely. It seems like electrification is going hand in hand with all-wheel drive-ification of cars. And we've already seen this from Toyota with their hybrids, including the Lexus UX250H and the Prius with the all-wheel drive E system, where it actually uses an electric motor to help with all-wheel drive. And it's not that mechanical coupling that's taking place. And yeah, it's a little more to haul around, but it's also adding a little more power to the vehicle as well. And as cars become, more battery electric cars, we're seeing dual motors being used. Mm-hmm. So the all-wheel drive version is the performance version of the car. So it goes beyond wintertime and, getting out of a stuck driveway. And it turns into things like we can see with some recent vehicles from, the EV6, the Genesis GV60, that we can drift them because we can sort of tune which way the all-wheel drive system works. It isn't just the manufacturer sets, this is the bias towards the front wheels, it's a 50-50 split. There are different modes with these dual motors that you can basically make the motors as powerful as you want them to at various times to help. So it's an entirely different way of looking at all-wheel drive as an everyday performance feature, as well as, with EVs with that instant torque. I know when we drive front-wheel drive EVs, it's pretty easy to chirp the tires. If the roads are a little wet, if there's a little snow, that traction control is eventually going to kick in. But we've found that all-wheel drive is almost kind of necessary when you have that much instant torque from electric motors. So I think it's becoming more and more important.
Yeah, it's relatively easy for a manufacturer to do all-wheel drive in an electric vehicle, as opposed to a regular vehicle where you have to make changes to the floor so that the drive shaft can go front to rear. Here, of course, the battery is a flat thing under the floor, and adding another motor on the axle that doesn't have it is fairly easy to do. By the way, a few years ago, we tested both versions of the Toyota Sienna, an all-wheel drive and a front-wheel drive, both XLEs, otherwise identical. The difference, because of what you said, Jen, about the added weight and added friction, there was a 1 mile per hour per gallon, rather, difference between the two, 19 mpg for the all-wheel drive and 20 mpg for the front-wheel drive.
Yeah. Just channeling too my inner Ryan, these EVs, just going back to what you were both saying, they may be optimized for rolling resistance. The whole thing is about eking out every mile of range out of these vehicles. So they may not be the grippiest, particularly in wet and winter conditions. So again, yes, you're going to have the all-wheel drive, but getting back to what John was saying, you may be opting for that winter tire to overcome some of those, less attractive capabilities. And I'd be remiss if I don't, John, you're absolutely right. People do get a little overconfident when the traction takes them off very smoothly. Just a reminder, every car has four-wheel brakes. And so it's one thing to get going very quickly, a little different when you need to stop. So that's, again, where that winter tire and that added traction help you stop as well as get going. So the all-wheel drive does not help you there. So great question. Hard to believe we're getting a winter tire question as we sit here in the summer heat. But again, keep them coming. talkingcars@icloud.com. This week's episode was produced by David Abrams and edited by Andrew Belize. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And we'll see you next week.